right, we are live looking today at the Asus ZenBook S16 OLED versus the IdeaPad Pro 5. And the real reason these two laptops are going head-to-head is to look at the latest between Intel and AMD Ryzen. Now, at the moment, the reason I'm comparing these two models specifically is really at the price point. These are the models that are available at around, say, the $1,200 to $1,500 price point. They're both equipped with 32 gigs of RAM. They're both the latest of what AMD and Intel are offering for speed, performance, efficiency, and so forth. Now, right now, I'm going to go ahead and unplug these two laptops. All right, so I'm going to show you real quick, unplugging both laptops at the same time. Now they're both at 100% battery life, and we're going to see how quickly each of these is drained during our real-world battery life tests. We're going to be editing H.264, H.265, 6K B-RAW, 6K red footage. We'll even jump into, say, 50 frames per second and 120 frames per second. We'll talk about video editing export times. So all that's going to be happening live here on the stream. And again, the goal of this video is to compare the latest of Intel Core Ultra versus the latest of AMD Ryzen AI. Now, the first clip that we have up on our timeline here inside of Premiere Pro is H.264 422 10-bit color, and these are going to be 30 frames per second. I have them both on full quality in the timeline playback. I have the drop frame indicator turned on, and they're both at their standard fan mode or standard performance mode. And we're going to go ahead and click play on both of these timelines, and we will see here, let me start at the beginning of this timeline, how each of these devices does on H.264 4K in the timeline. Right now, just kicking it off, you can see that the ZenBook is dropping frames, where the Intel Core Ultra is not dropping frames. Both are on battery power, both are on standard mode. So since we've seen that on standard mode, kind of adaptive mode, the Intel Core Ultra is winning, let's just go ahead and switch over to performance mode and see if that helps the ZenBook at all. Let's just go right up to dynamic performance mode and come back and start the timeline over. Again, still 0 drop frames over here on the Intel Core Ultra 9 285H. Okay, so if you go to performance mode on the ZenBook OLED, you have no drop frames. Now, we'll see how that'll affect battery life, and for the sake of this video, I'm going to now leave the ZenBook OLED on performance mode and leave the IdeaPad Pro 5 on kind of its standard adaptive mode. All right, so that's how we're going to be running this test. Now, right off the bat, I do notice a little bit, tiny bit of fan noise out of the ZenBook OLED, and the fans are running on the IdeaPad Pro 5, but what we're seeing is less fan noise. And just for clarity's sake, you can check the links in the description below of these two devices that I'm reviewing, and that should show you, oh, the link might not be there for the IdeaPad yet, because it's not yet released. It releases in March, but the ZenBook is there, and both of these laptops are going to be around the $1,200 to $1,500 price point. Now, there are newer chipsets coming out. Let's say, for instance, we have the Asus Republic of Gamer Flow Z13 with the latest AI Max, right? That's going to be different than the 370 we have here. It's going to be more of a high-end chipset. That's why I'm testing these two devices around the same price point. And so that's where I really want to keep this video focused, is price point and offering from the brands that are equally matched out. Okay, we're going to jump back over to the other camera still. H.264 4K 422 10-bit 30 frames per second. Both have 0 drop frames on full resolution, and the IdeaPad Pro 5 with the Intel Core Ultra 9 285H is dropping no frames on adaptive mode. Performance mode for the ZenBook OLED with the Ryzen AI 9 HX, I believe it's the 370. There's so many number SKUs. Again, check the links in the description below for the exact model we are checking out here. Let's just jump into system information just to give you guys full clarity on the device we're looking at here. Yep, HX 370, okay? So that's what we're reviewing head-to-head here against the Intel Core Ultra 9 285H. Okay, now let's go ahead and switch out some footage here. This will take me just a minute to switch out the footage to H.265, 50 frames per second for both of these devices. And so what we're going to do is we'll test that up next. Let's see. 50 frames per second. Pull this into the timeline here. You can see I'm pulling that in. We're going to change the sequence settings based on the new footage we're dragging in. and we'll just multiply this across the timeline. This footage was provided by TechNotice. Good friend, fellow YouTuber. Definitely check out his stuff. It is absolutely fantastic. Now, as we're jumping into things, I'm going to quick run the sponsor segment for this video, and we'll jump right back into this. I'm going to switch over the footage on this laptop now. So as soon as the ad's over, we'll jump right back in.
This video is brought to you by the Asus ProArt P16, the flagship creator laptop from Asus that provides on-the-go workstation performance within a beautiful and durable military-tested all-aluminum chassis, outfitted with a pen-compatible 4K OLED Corning glass display that is durable and color accurate. It weighs 4 pounds and is just over a half an inch thick, capable of all-day battery life for productivity tasks, and fitted with the Asus dial to streamline your workflow, providing access to your most commonly used tools. Equipped with the AMD Ryzen AI9 CPU, up to 64 gigs of RAM, and an RTX 4060 or 4070, this device is a powerhouse for architecture and 3D modeling work. And trust me, this is just the tip of the iceberg when looking at what the Asus ProArt P16 has to offer. Check out my full review content within the playlist linked in the YouTube cards above or in the description below. Thank you so much to Asus ProArt for sponsoring this part of the video.
All right, we are back and looking at the difference between H.265 at 50 frames per second, and this is going to be 422, 10-bit, all the works. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit play on the timeline, and we will see how each of these devices does with 50 frames per second. And then we will move to 120 frames per second, and at that point, we will jump to 6K resolution and see the improvements and the downsides of doing 6K on each of these laptops. So far, both laptops, like I said, are on their kind of respective performance modes. One over here, the IdeaPad is on like an adaptive mode, whereas the ZenBook S16 OLED is on its true kind of performance bounce mode. It's not on full speed mode, it's on its bounce mode. Right now you can see both are full quality. We just had our first drop frame out of the Asus ZenBook S16 OLED with the AMD Ryzen 9 HX 370 versus the Intel Core Ultra 9 285H. Still have, we have our first drop frame there at 50 seconds in. First drop frame showed up at about 25 or 30 seconds in. Now, right now at a minute, let's see, at a minute, we have 2 drop frames for the Ryzen. At a minute, we have 9 drop frames for the Intel. So very, very close in regards to where these two devices sit. Go ahead and bump down the that so you can get a little darker there. So just a few drop frames, 50 frames per second, H.265 for these two devices. So far, I would say that as far as performance is concerned, these two devices are absolutely neck and neck. Let's go ahead and check battery, which, as mentioned during the beginning of this video, was at 100% when we started. The AMD Ryzen AI9 HX is at 100%, and we've been running this video for, let's see here, about 9 minutes. We've already lost 3% on Intel. So right now, it looks like performance is the same. However, efficiency on the AMD Ryzen is going to be better. The efficiency looks to be better on the AMD Ryzen compared to Intel. So 3% dip on the battery life already. Both are at full brightness. So I'm cranking these at full brightness, adaptive battery mode, and for the AMD Ryzen on the Asus ZenBook S16 OLED, we are at performance mode. So we're seeing a dip in battery life I would say very quickly at 3% versus 0% between these two laptops. Okay, 2 minutes and 30 seconds in, 7 drop frames for the AMD on the Asus ZenBook, 9 frames for the Intel Core Ultra 9 285H on the IdeaPad Pro 5. So I would say we're probably going to stick around that point there. Let's go ahead and switch over to the 120 frames per second and see what kind of drop frames we have at that point. All right, so I'm pulling in this footage now. Okay, we're going to change sequence settings to match our new footage. Dragging this over. All right, we are pulling in 120 frames per second. on both of these devices here in just a moment. Right now we're setting up the AMD device, which is the ZenBook S16 OLED. And I'm going to just go ahead and start that. No, I'm going to wait. I'm going to pull this device over. So I'm curious though, as you're going through this video, which device you are really deciding between. Right now, like I said, this is a showdown between AMD and Intel. I did my showdown between the MacBook Air and the Asus ZenBook S16 OLED, and that was based off of my experience that I currently use the MacBook Air as kind of my on-the-go device. And I was trying to see what it would be like if I tried to switch over to the, is that correct? 120 frames per second, A7S3. Yes. I was trying to see what it would be like to switch over from Apple to x86 Windows, if AMD would be capable of doing that for me. And what I found is, comparing battery life, the Apple MacBook Air was still more efficient in regards to battery life. And so for the moment, and I've yet to test the latest AMD Ryzen AI 9 Max and the Max Pro as comparable devices to, replacing my MacBook Air. That will be seen pretty soon when I have the chance to review, maybe the HP ZBook or something else. But for now, I'm sticking with the MacBook Air as my on-the-go device for the moment. Okay, now let's see here. We have 120 frames per second. I, without a doubt, am anticipating that at full quality on performance modes, these both are going to drop frames, and then I'm going to have to switch it to like half or fourth to not get drop frames, because even with dedicated GPUs, 120 frames per second, let's see, I think we're sitting at H.265 on this footage. Let's see, this is, oh no, sorry, I mess this up every time. This is HEVC 10-bit 422 from a Sony A7S III. All right, so playing that, immediately dropping frames on the Ryzen, and immediately dropping frames on Intel, but you can tell that Intel versus Ryzen here, we actually have playback happening on the Intel versus the Ryzen. It's super jumpy. And so that's just showing again that Intel, partnering with Adobe and Sony, has these built-in engines to be able to play back your footage smoother. And so if you're somebody who's on the go, we've dropped 210 frames, which is not a lot. I mean, well, I take that back. It is quite a lot in the first 30 seconds, but compared to the 4,800 frames in the first 40 seconds on AMD, you can tell that performance-wise, Intel has AMD beat in this playback test. They're both on full quality, both on their respective performance modes. So if you're looking for performance on the go, you should be looking at Intel Core Ultra. However, as I mentioned, we're down to 96% battery life. Let's see where we're at for the AMD. We're at 99% battery life. So we've burned 1% for the AMD. We've burned 4% battery for the Intel Core Ultra in the amount of time we've been streaming this, which is 13 minutes and 30 seconds. So depends again on what you're looking for. Performance, Intel has it beat. All right, let's go ahead and see. We're a minute and 20 seconds in. Let's see here how many drop frames. Still 210, very respectable. Let's go ahead and test if we restart this clip. Okay, it drops frames right off the bat. Let's see if we can get this device to play back this 120 frames per second. 1 minute and 40 seconds in, we're dropping 12,600 frames. It is a lot of drop frames. All right, let's just jump straight to fourth quality and see if we can get smooth playback out of the AMD Ryzen AI 9 HX370. Okay, dropping frames, but it appears to be much smoother. Nope, it's getting droppy. And as you can see over here for the Intel, this is full quality, and it is basically smooth playback, especially compared to this. I mean, just look at the difference in the smoothness. Let's see what we have going on here. We're 40 seconds in, 71 drop frames. Oh, wait, no, not 71. Excuse me, 11 drop frames, 50 seconds in. We're 30 seconds in on fourth quality, and we have 3,000 drop frames. All right, let's try and get this down to eighth quality. So far, we've been unable to get smooth playback on AMD Ryzen 9 AI Max, not AI Max, excuse me, AMD Ryzen 9 HX370. We've yet to be able to get smooth playback on 120 frames per second. We've been able to maintain smooth playback on Intel Core Ultra 9 285H basically this whole time. on full quality. We're on 8th quality, and we're just dropping frames like crazy. 2,000 drop frames in the first 20 seconds. So on the go, 120 frames per second, HEVC 10-bit from Sony A7 IIIS is A7S3 is basically unusable. We're cranking the fan noise. Almost no fan noise from the IdeaPad Pro 5. Not full fan noise, probably 35 to 38 decibels of fan noise coming out of the ZenBook S16 OLED. Here, I can give you a listen to that. Not sure if you can hear that, but that is about 35 to 38 decibels of fan noise. Okay, and so that's just proving can't do it. On the go, on battery power, the Asus ZenBook S16 OLED, Ryzen AI9HX 370 cannot play 120 frames per second. Intel can. Okay, interesting. But let's go ahead and jump back to another thought, and that's, again, efficiency. Okay, so 3%. So now that we've been pushing the system harder, 3% battery usage. Let's check. We're still at 6% battery usage. So because the AMD system is trying to work harder to play back this footage, and the video encoders on Intel don't have to work as hard, so it's not pushing the actual hardware, what we are seeing is we're starting to catch up. The AMD system is starting to catch up in regards to battery life usage to the Intel system. So pretty interesting. All right, let's go ahead and switch over to 6K B-RAW footage. And then after this, in a little bit, we're going to talk about some battery life, not battery life, we're going to talk about some export time results comparing these two models. But again, as you're going through this video, if you're curious about the exact pricing and availability, head down in the description below, click those links. I will tell you that the IdeaPad Pro 5 is not available at the moment. It comes available in, I think, mid to late March. So we're in March, but it's going to come available in mid to late March. And both of these laptops are priced around the $1,200 to $1,500 price point, depending on when you're buying it, depending on sale prices, etc. So the goal of this review is to compare two of the most kind of current AMD versus Intel equipped laptops at a very similar price point. I am not comparing, the latest AI Max found in like the Z13 or to come the ZBook Ultra. I'm comparing it kind of apples to apples or oranges to oranges, as it were. Okay, the next thing we're testing right now, I'm going to switch over to the camera. We're testing 6K B-RAW footage. This is 12:1 6K B-RAW footage, full quality, both on their respective performance modes. All right, we're doing playback right now on these two devices, and let's see how this footage is handled. All right, as you can see, playback on these two devices here, it's looking quite a bit jumpy on the AMD system. And we are 20 seconds in on the Intel system, 144 drop frames at full quality. 25 seconds in, 524 drop frames. So nearly 5 times the drop frames on the Asus ZenBook S16 OLED. Now, the big issue that I'm going to run into here is now that the system is pushing harder with the lack of video encoders like Intel has, and again, I'm not doing an Intel promo, I'm showing you real-world testing here. Like, the video encoders make a difference in efficiency. At first, the ZenBook was showing great battery life results, right? We had 100% sustained for a couple minutes. Now we're down to 96% on the AMD system, which has nearly caught up with the Intel system. We're down to 92%. Remember, I'm on full brightness and I'm on performance mode for both of these devices. And if you're looking at, we're at 19 minutes and 30 seconds into the video, 95% battery usage, 92% battery usage. They're starting to align. And so what we're seeing is better performance out of the Intel IdeaPad Pro 5 because it's able to produce, as Intel was talking about earlier in CES and with my reviews throughout this year so far, is performance per watt, right? Intel is able to get more performance out of less wattage. So it's causing less heat. So the system fans don't have to kick on is high. So again, the system is running its fan basically on like an idle fan noise. Like it's not even audible compared to the AMD fan, which is cranking at probably 38 to 40 decibels of fan noise comparatively. So that's where we're starting to get a ton of burn, and we're starting to see battery life tick and even up quickly. 91% now on 6KB, 91% now on the IdeaPad Pro 5, and 94%. That gap is closing rather quickly because how hard the system has to push, rather than using codecs and rather than using encoders that Intel has developed with Adobe and all that jazz. Okay. Again, this isn't supposed to be a sales video. It's supposed to show you and explain to you what's happening here. All right, let's check drop frames. 894 drop frames at 2 minutes and 40 seconds. And then at 2 minutes and 45 seconds, 2 minutes and 45 seconds, 3,000 drop frames. So over 3 times the amount of drop frames from the AMD system. I didn't show you that. I'm very sorry. Let's switch back over here. So there you go. 3 minutes in, 3,340. 3 minutes in, 785. So again, more than 3 times the amount of drop frames coming out of the AMD system. And the battery lives, as I said, because the AMD system is now having to work so hard, are beginning to match up. 90% battery life left compared to 93%, both at full brightness, both on respective battery modes. Okay, let's talk about export times as I switch over to 6K red footage, playback, and we are going to go ahead and pull this up. 6K red footage. Hopefully everything loads without an issue. 6K red footage. Okay, battery life results. Let's talk about it. No, not battery life. Export times. So the export time for a 1080p to 1080p out of the Intel Core Ultra 285H is going to be 53 seconds, and that's a 9-minute clip, versus the Asus ZenBook S16 OLED 1 minute and 33 seconds. For 4K to 4K export out of the Asus ZenBook OLED, 4 minutes and 31 seconds. IdeaPad Pro 5 with Intel Core Ultra 9 285H, 3 minutes and 29 seconds. On battery power, 5 minutes and 7 seconds from the Asus ZenBook S16 OLED, 4 minutes and 12 seconds out of the IdeaPad Pro 5. Looking at 6K BRAW, this is where things really start to take a big gap. Asus ZenBook S16 OLED, 24 minutes and 38 seconds. 15 minutes and 17 seconds out of Lenovo IdeaPad Pro 5. Remember, these are all 9-minute clips at different resolutions. Okay, now we're jumping over to 6K red footage. And we are looking at the playback here. Locate, video editing, search. Okay, we're getting the footage loaded up right now. 6K red footage out of the Red Dragon. And let's see. Go ahead. I'm going to do these at half quality just to kind of see what happens here. All right, half quality, play. All right. We are at half quality, and in the first 10 seconds, 316 drop frames actually out of Intel, 369 in the first 20 seconds, 395. They're basically matched up in regards to dropped frames for BRAW. BRAW is very heavy for either device. 500 in the first 30 seconds, 473 in the first 30 seconds. So if you're doing 6K red footage, both devices, I would personally not recommend. Okay, the last thing we're going to check, 92% battery life. Near the end of this video, we're 20-some minutes in, 88% battery life on Intel Core Ultra. So we have they have evened out in regards to battery life. But if you're somebody looking for top performance on multiple codecs and multiple video editing resolutions, then I would definitely recommend the Intel Core Ultra. It's going to be better overall. Definitely check out the links in the description below for curious about the exact pricing and availability. And thank you so much for watching this one. Click or tap the screen here for more videos to help with your buying decision. I'll see you in the next one.